Hey everybody, this is LZ from BSC, and I'm here to jumpstart your week. Welcome to the monthly Stars Expo, where we'll be featuring DeFi and Infra projects chosen in October. Here's a short run through of today's itinerary. Each project will get 15 minutes of showcase, and after that, we will be doing a live AMA with participants. Earlier today, BSC posted a tweet with a link to a Google form, where we'll be collecting questions you may have for your favorite project. Chosen questions will get an incredible $500 worth of tokens, so look out for that. First up, we have Tom, the project lead of Waterfall DeFi. Waterfall DeFi is a platform that offers true risk diversification through tranching of yield-generating DeFi assets. Hey Tom, how's everything?
Hello, LZ. Thanks for having me. Everything is great here. How are you?
I'm doing well, so thank you. Yes, so without further ado, the time is yours.
All right, thank you. Hey, thanks everyone for checking out and joining the chat. And I'm also super excited that we're being invited by Binance to actually join in here and actually explain a little bit more about the project. So what I would do is I would do a really quick sort of run through about what our project is, and then essentially give you a rundown of how the project is being sort of live right now on the website. So our DApp, our product, actually was launched last week. So now actually you can see how a sort of our first product is being performing right now, and then you guys can take a look. So if you have any questions or anything, feel free to ask here, or anything, just reach us on our Telegram or our Discord. We're always there, so let us know, and love to answer and catch up with anything. So give me 1 second. Let me just share my screen here. Sorry, 1 second. All right, so here is a screen of our project. This is our main website, waterfalldefi.org. So we bring risk tranching to the DeFi space. So I guess the number one question people ask is like, what is risk tranching? Risk tranching essentially is about how we engage and create a structured product that will redistribute the risk and reward of folks who actually try to invest into anything that is DeFi. So what we do first is we create and we package together a product, what we call a strategy or portfolio. Essentially is a combination of different yield generating DeFi assets, which in our first product case is going to be 2 BUSD stablecoin farm on BSC, one on Alpaca and one on Venus. So the whole point is that we loop down the line, we loop more and more of these DeFi assets together, diversified, the investment strategy a bit, and then put them into different vaults. Each vault will consist multiple sort of layer of assets. So in that case, if anything sort of fail or essentially fail to perform, because the investment is a little bit more diversified, your return is actually a little bit more safe and a little bit more protected because of that way. So that is the basic sort of a yield aggregator kind of product, right? So nothing really fancy about it. So what we do on top of that, different individual strategies is we actually slice those pieces into different tranches. You can think of tranches as different layers that you can choose to invest in. Each layer would have a different set of return and risk sort of combination. So you can see right now on the page, we have sort of 3 little islands there, and then you've got some water floating down, almost like a waterfall, all the way down, right? So this is essentially the concept. The name is essentially what we're trying to do. Each layer here essentially is about each individual sort of risk tranche that we put it on. The earlier or the higher up the tranches, and what we call the more senior the tranches, essentially you will be the first one to get paid after the investment period is matured. So because of that way, you are always standing in front of the line, in a sense, mitigating some of the risk, and as a result, your return will be a little bit discounted because some of those return you are willing actually to give up all the way down to the folks actually at the bottom. So those are the more junior tranches. So they get paid the last, but at the same time, they actually get to pay whatever that's left over with the investment. So in this case, if the market actually becomes much better, they actually take on a lion's share of the portfolio and actually get a much more leveraged return. But on the flip side, if the market actually underperforms, their capitals or their return is actually being used to sort of protect the capital potential loss or some of those, unexpected situation that happened to the folks that is in the senior tranche. So essentially, is a portfolio is a combination where users can then engage into almost like hedging behavior between themselves to realize, the more risk-seeking folks is going to go into the more leveraged layer, whereas the more conservative and risk-averse folks is going to go into the more senior tranche where they have a fixed return, but the return is going to be a little bit more discounted in that sense. So if you go on the website, we actually have a very simple illustration essentially showing how the assets being pulled together, and then as a waterfall almost pattern, how it's actually being distributed into different tranches. And depending on the amount that they actually received, senior and mezzanine is essentially going to get the same amount, but junior will have a much more swing and dynamic return. So let me now jump into where our DApp is at. So this is where our DApp is being live right now. So as you can see right now, we actually have a $1 million TVL on our first product. You can check out some very basic stuff like our token price, where the market cap is at, some Twitter announcement, and also some sample product situations. So this essentially is the first product that we are working with. So let me zoom in a little bit so folks can take a better look. So you can see senior, mezzanine, and junior tranches. So all three tranches would have a different level of return, which in a sense representing the risk that they are seeing. So on the senior tranche, you can see the APR is about 5.5%, mezzanine is about 8.5%, and those are fixed. So when you deposit into our senior and mezzanine tranche, you're being guaranteed that 5.5% or 8.5% of APR will be generated on your deposit. On the junior tranche, you can see here is 56.9%. So this is actually a heavily leveraged yield position. It is also variable. So what that means is, based on how the farm performed, over the days, you actually will see this number flicker. So for example, right now with both farm being sort of rewarding around like 11 or 12% in terms of the APR, you're seeing junior leverage up to about like 59%, about like 5x. But if the farm actually drop, which in some cases it actually happens throughout the week, you can see this number all the way drop to like 40-something% or 30-something%. So regardless, junior's position is actually fluctuating, and what they're betting on is the market actually perform better than what we expected or what we forecast, and in a sense, they will get a much heavier and higher leverage return. So in our app, once you go in, connect your wallet, of course, some basic stuff, you can see here is our product. Each of our product is being locked up for about 7 days. So as you can see here, we're still about 2 days, 1 hour and 46 minutes, 11 seconds until this mature. So we actually launched this last Wednesday. So this Wednesday at around 2 or 3 more hours from now, it will essentially be unlocked, and all the yield is actually going to be flow back, and actually users can then reclaim and get their return and both the principal and also their interest back. So here you can see we're doing a 7-day period. It's a BUSD fall, so assets based on BUSD, and we're essentially setting up as a $1 million TVL. So once you click into a little bit into the detail, you can actually look into, okay, what is the portfolio distribution? So if you can see, we have Alpaca, and then we also have Venus in our base portfolio. At the same time, we also have a structure where we show the amount of deposit that is being taken by each tranches. So in this case, 60% of our portfolio is actually senior, 30% is mezzanine, 10% is junior. So this allowed us to actually calculate and actually allow junior to come out with a very aggressive and actually leveraged return, even though this is actually a simple BUSD based farm. So they're actually getting 5x, and the reason why is because we actually have a bit of a calculation in setting up the ratio between each tranches to make it happen. As you can see, if the junior actually become much bigger, the yield and the leverage will actually be much less. And then you can look into here. Here essentially is showcasing which part, like as a user, when they try to use it, you can just click on whichever the portfolio you want to go in and then just deposit. So as long as the TVL limit is not being reached by each tranche, you're free to deposit anything in. And once all 3 tranches are sold out, so essentially all of them are filled, the protocol, the smart contract would automatically lock and then deploy for users to essentially starting to get yield and return. So we'll probably see the vote opening up this Wednesday. So in 2 days, we're also potentially opening up a couple more this kind of vote to allow users to come in. We have to sort of set a TVL limit in that sense to want to make sure that we can set the ratio right. But yeah, this is essentially what we're trying to do. And once you actually get your return back, you can go back to this page and actually withdraw your BUSD. For Waterfall reward, so essentially down the line, whenever users start using our protocol and start farming, they will also get Waterfall token back as part of the farming activities. Our staking page is still under construction right now, which is why we're not really giving out Waterfall as we speak, but doesn't matter. Any users who actually been using our product, before the staking page is live, we will do a retroactive airdrop to make sure that, our early users and their effort and their belief and the support to us is being rewarded in that sense. The rules and the setup and everything else, timing and everything else, we'll be setting out some social media articles and announcements soon. So stay tuned to our social. And like I said, right now the staking page is still under construction, so it will come soon. So once it's up, you can actually deposit your token in our staking page. And depending on the period that you want to lock up in the staking, you will get, more and more amount of not just Waterfall token back as well, but also our governance token, which is called VEWTF. And those tokens actually allow you to actually get a share of our platform fee in terms of, holding utilities. So not only governance in terms of voting on future DAO related issues, you are also able to actually go up and actually claim real economic value by holding our token. So this is sort of what we're trying to make sure that there's value and there's excitement and there's clear usage of our token in that sense. So yeah, so this is essentially a quick run through of our product and our project. A little bit more detail you can see on the user guide, which we actually explain in detail, not just about how to use the product, but also in here, what is the Waterfall DeFi and what is tranching. All this information you can see in here. So I'm not going to bore you with all the details. Essentially, the sense is that, you go into the market, you go into the product. What that means is the higher the risk, the higher the return. The lower the risk, the lower the return. And you are essentially doing leverage yield farming without borrowing any money or doing any things that potentially will liquidate you, right? So this is essentially what we're trying to do and trying to push. I'm actually done here in terms of like some brief description and the introduction of our project. So I will see the room back to LZ.
Cool. Thank you for the showcase. The dApp looks really intuitive. So while you're doing the demonstrations, I actually received a couple of questions from our audience.
Awesome.
So the first one, it was congratulations on reaching 1 million TVL in just a week. What are the main concerns with not lifting the BUSD vault limits at the moment?
So I think the 1 million essentially is what we're doing. So the story goes is we actually set up 1 million TVL. We actually debated within the team, and in the end we decided to, this is our first product. Also the team's first sort of DeFi project. So we want to make sure that let's walk before we can run. So that's why we set a 1 million TVL as of right now to just test the product, test the contract, and make sure that everything goes fine. Ultimately, we'll open up the TVL. This is what we're trying to do, right? Like even for our first product, the 1 million TVL, we actually got that filled within like 3 hours, and then instantly it was launched. So we're actually quite confident that we're able to triple or quadruple or whatever it in the next sort of week when we actually open up the vault, and we will see how the market goes. Because the thing about the product is if users deposit into our vault, and if the tranche limit is not filled by all 3 tranches, the product wouldn't go live, so users fund is essentially sitting there, so that's not really ideal. So what we want is essentially opening up more and more smaller votes, not crazy TVLs, but then we get more options and more different maturation days, and some people would choose, hey, I want to put it for 30 days, right? So we can do something like that too. So we're gonna put up more combination and more options for users to put in, and depending on what they want, they can be like, hey, I really trust this low risk thing. I want to be in long term, so I want to ape in like a 30 days sort of cycle. So the whole point of 1 million piece is also, number one, to really hit it fast and get it running and get the thing out, to also test it to make sure everything's okay. And last thing is also to showcase with real example and proof of concept to the users, be like, hey, guys actually use it and actually get the returns. So this is what's going to happen. So it actually help us to continue to go out and actually communicate and increase our exposure to the community and explain to them how things would do and how big the tranche is going to be like. So yeah, so that's sort of the reason why the 1 million TVL was fairly conservative and very sort of small in the set for the beginning.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So just a personal add-on.
Mm-hmm.
When will the next product will be out?
Sorry?
When will you be releasing the next few tranches, like different products?
Got it. So for our next really opening up the tranche, it's actually going to be Wednesday around 3 p.m. UTC. So about like 2 days and about like an hour or two from now. So then we'll actually open up. So the product is still going to be the same. So we're still going to make sure that the BUSD vault works first, and also making sure that basic stablecoin product is there to make sure people actually got to engage and understand the concept. So that's sort of the more sustainable, long-term, not crazy return, but long-term sustainable yield that we're looking at. Going forward, we actually are looking into actually expanding a little bit into different type products. So that probably going to come a little bit later. And users, if anyone has any idea in terms of what kind of DeFi asset you actually want us to put in, just let us know. I think we'll also open up to listen to the community to see what are some of the interesting stuff that they want to see realized in the risk tranching world. Like, is it LP token, or is it NFTs, or is it leverage product on other vaults, right? Anything that you guys actually think would be interesting, so let us know. We have some idea in our mind, but we definitely want to see what the community wants, and ultimately it's you guys who use the product. So we want to make sure that you guys feed us what is the interesting stuff, and then we can start getting the tech to build on the contracts.
For sure, sounds great. So for the next question, it's from another user. What are the competitive advantages of Waterfall compared to existing products like Chess or Ondo Finance?
Got it. So for our competitive, I think I would say a couple of things. Number one, so we actually run in a very, I would say, sort of contrary way of like what tranches or what Ondo says. So what tranches on Ondo and a bunch of other risk tranching protocols that's not on DeFi, not on BSC, but even on Ethereum, they essentially have a more open sort of ended sort of setup. So let's say, for example, if you go to Brownbridge, if you grant tranches, you put your stuff on there, and then at some point you don't want it, you can just pull it out, right? So this is sort of how they were doing, and it's very DeFi native. So what we're doing is a little bit different. So what we did here is we actually locked the vote for 7 days. So it's actually kind of risk we want to take, and we also want to hear what the community feel about, whether that makes sense. The reason why we lock the vote is because once you lock the vote, you actually ensure that a proper risk tranching mechanism is being in place. So what that means is actually when junior, like for example, in a case when actually one of the vote have some issues, if you're not really locking the vote, all the junior will essentially be like, holy shit, I'm actually going to lose my money. I'm going to come in, I'm actually going to take my stuff out. So then what it means is what I'll promise to the senior tranche, where it's like, hey, you actually got mezzanine and junior there to cover your first loss in case anything happens, would not be valid. So in this case, we want to make sure that, or for example, when senior deposit here and they be like, hey, you know what, actually, I really don't want to go with this. I want with any other reasons, go with other options. They pull their fund out. And in that case, it actually significantly hamper and limit the leverage return of the juniors, right? So what we want is we want to make sure that this thing is actually locked, so that this kind of mechanism and the risk tranching sort of, I would say, concept and principle is actually being at work. So that's, I would say, number one, that what we're trying to do here is a little bit different. And number two is the diversification that we just talked about earlier when you talk about products, right? So I think ultimately for us to really go out and actually be be competitive and offering something that's truly interesting to the users is we're actually looping into different type of products. The first product is like you see, we have 2 vaults BUSD on Alpaca and Venus. Very simple, very vanilla. Down the line, we're gonna loop in more and more and more and more, and with more interesting product that will bring higher return. And in that case, then you can start tranching it. If you think about it, right, you have lower risk product on one side, you have higher risk product on the other side. You loop them together, you then can engineer a return that actually will make sense even in a senior position, which, by the way, you are actually being diversified and also being first loss covered by all the subsequent tranches. So you're actually looking at a very sizable return with a bit of a protection, compared to when you go out and just do your own sort of investment into a single vault, where single point of failure, anything fail, it fail. On the flip side, what that means for the junior tranche is that leverage percentage is going to go way up. So for people who are actually really seeking the numbers and be like, you know what, I really believe in a couple products that you put in, and actually I'm really bullish about it, I'm just going to go into junior, even though I know that my money or my investments potentially be as used as protection for the more senior tranches, I still get potentially the windfall, and I bet the market is going to go well. So I think that's sort of the diversification we're seeing. So for example, stuff like tranches, they're actually essentially doing a single vault. Like I know they're doing BTC related sort of farm. So what they're doing is like totally different. Like they did some really great product and achieve some good TVLs, right? I think their stuff is also very simple and easy to just be like, hey, you deposit BTC, they give you the chess token, and then the queen token, and then you can then tranche it, yada yada yada. So I think what we're doing is a little bit different. Is that we go direct to the farms, to the yield, to the product. So that's why with any new product coming in, we're gonna have a little bit more work to do to make sure that we can link up with their farm right. But what we're trying to do is essentially expand into a range of products, all the way from stable, steady stuff to degen stuff, and that's what we think, going forward is gonna be our sort of competitive edge that actually, would be, I would say, really, fit what the DeFi user wants.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you for the showcase, and also it has been really insightful.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the community, I think you heard what Tom said. They want to hear your voice. So please follow their social medias, and I guess please sound it out to their groups and admins about what you want in Waterfall DeFi. Thank you, Tom.
Absolutely. Give us a holler, ping me. I'm on the chat all the time. Just swing by, say hi, and anything you want to talk, just let me know. Happy to talk. And also our team as well. So everybody is really excited to engage the community.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. I'll see you around.
Thank you. See you.
That has been a great session with Waterfall DeFi. Next up, we have Dave, the growth lead at Gelato Network. Gelato is an infra project that allows developers to automate smart contracts, outsource Web3 DevOps needs, and also they give access to one of the most reliable bot networks. Hey Dave, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good as well. So I'm already seeing some comments sharing for Gelato. Guess it's a cue for me to back off. Go ahead, Dave.
Cool. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here, especially considering we just launched on BSC. We have a lot of exciting things in the works, and I prepared a little presentation for this today. Let me just pull up my screen. Okay, it's weird. Let me, hold on. All right. The DeFi future is automated and how Gelato is leading the way. My goal for this presentation is to really make everyone understand why Gelato is a necessary part of not just the Binance smart chain ecosystem, but the entire multi-chain DeFi ecosystem. And I'm really excited for this. So a little bit of intro of myself. I'm DeFi Dave, and I'm the growth lead at Gelato. I've been in crypto for 4 years, but my first heavy involvement in Ethereum and this whole multi-chain world was during DeFi summer. I joined Gelato in February 2021, and I witnessed the tremendous growth over the past 9 months from a relatively unknown project to a leading automation protocol. In nearly 9 months after joining, I have come to articulate what automation is and why it's becoming really a cornerstone of not just all of DeFi, but all of Web3. So, what is automation exactly? Automation can be defined as the use of bots to automatically carry out software processes. Sometimes these bots are referred to as executors or keepers and are part of the middleware infrastructure of the blockchain stack. So, similar to how, if I had to compare it to something, I would compare it to Oracle. So, Chainlink, they are the leading Oracle platform. They're probably the last time I checked, their market cap was around $5-10 billion, and they receive tons of requests a day. A lot of projects depend on them for information outside the blockchain to be transmuted to the blockchain. So if you want something comparable, like what middleware infrastructure exactly is, that's Oracle's automation, even the graph, which says querying data. These are all parts of the DeFi middleware stack that support the applications themselves that you use and enjoy without a hitch. So why exactly do we need automation? When it comes to smart contracts, many people assume that they are already built in with automation, but this couldn't be farther from the truth. And outside of liquidations and arbitrage, automation is noticeably absent from DeFi. And this is from the Gelato white paper itself. Um, the reason for the lack of this of automation lies within the Ethereum virtual machine itself. Programs only run for a few milliseconds at a time, persistent loops or cron jobs that constantly repeat themselves. Typically, in the traditional operating systems, they limit a miner from ever completing the state transition, thus a mining block. As a result, these programs called smart contracts I want to repeat these programs called smart contracts are limited to only storing stored state and logic. So they're very limited in like what they can do in a short amount of time. Without an outside impulse, they are functionally inactive. So this basically means there needs to be someone who manually triggers a transaction. There needs to be someone that says, "Hey, like if I want this done at this time, they have to do it. They have to go in and do it themselves. They can't schedule it in the future. That's how the Ethereum virtual machine works. In order to execute their logic and to change their state, they require an external party to send a transaction to them in the first place. So here's a little bit of history of automation. It's something that's been, discussed in blockchain and in Ethereum since 2015. Automation at a smart contract level has been tried and discussed in the whole community since at least 2015. The first attempt was the Ethereum alarm clock. This was created by a developer named Piper Mariam. And basically, this was a very simple automation tool that scheduled, oh, please send this transaction at this time. It really didn't do anything else. The next step of automation was MakerDAO. They ushered in the gas auction era. So different bots would basically bid on the right to, let's say, liquidate a vault that is under health factor, and that's actually a quite gas intensive process, and wastes a lot of time and energy. Um, I want to share a video of the importance of automation was discussed by even Vitalik himself. And as you can see, even Vitalik himself is something. He said automation is something that could be something quite valuable. It's been discussed for years, but there really, wasn't a good system created for the first, 4 or 5 years of smart contracts. But like a better way emerges. Outside of off-chain order book, relayers, makers liquidation system, and the whole system of arbitrage bots sniping orders on dexes. There was no other widespread automation at a smart contract level. This wasn't until Gelato came along in 2019 and was the first real attempt to organize bot operators in a coordinated manner through a protocol as opposed to an uncoordinated manner using gas auctions. So, what is Gelato? The Gelato network is an automation protocol that powers a decentralized network of bots whose job it is to execute transactions on a given network. I like to describe Gelato as general purpose automation in the same way that Vitalik describes Ethereum as general purpose computation. So, on Ethereum, any computer program that can be created will be created. With Gelato, any function with those computer programs that can be automated will be automated. So this really gives Gelato infinite design space and like the possibilities of what can be automated, which is really exciting. Gelato was started by Hilmar Oath and Lewis and out of Full Node in Berlin in 2019. So they've been working on this for over 2 years. So like, what's the recipe of success for Gelato? What Gelato did for the first time was to provide general automation services and match DApp developers with bot operators in a mutually beneficial way, dramatically reducing malcoordination and the leakage of value to miners. Compared to gas auctions, this round-robin system of allocating transactional tasks to bots makes it dramatically more efficient for automation to be applied to a wider variety of use cases since it eliminates reverse from bots racing each other and by pooling bot resources together in an organized manner for the benefit of all. I would like to describe Gelato as a transaction hungry protocol. So Gelato, the more transactions there are, the more it scales. For example, on Binance Smart Chain, the more applications that we integrate with, the cheaper it gets for all. So here are some current use cases. Limit orders. Limit orders are probably the simplest way for people to understand why Gelato is important. If, for example, if you go on PancakeSwap, you may notice that you can only do a market order. You basically input a number. Let's say you want to trade, BNB for alpaca. You put in a number, but you can't specify the exact number the exact order that you want. So with limit orders, you can basically say like, hey, please, I want to buy the dip. Please set the price at this. And actually, if you go on sorbet.finance, we just integrated PancakeSwap's liquidity in Sorbet Finance, so you can go ahead and buy the dip there. Basically, if PancakeSwap were to do this, to build this themselves, it would require them to build, investing resources, building new smart contracts, monitoring, DevOps. It takes a lot of time and it takes away from developing their core product. Or they could outsource it to Gelato and we take care of everything. We've already integrated across different chains. We're on QuickSwap, on Polygon, SpookySwap and SpiritSwap on Phantom, and we are planning to be on more soon, especially on Binance Smart Chain. Another big product of ours is a G-Uni, which is a Uniswap v3 wrapper. I like to say it turns Uniswap v3 into v2 again. It makes it into v2 again. It wraps the position and automatically auto compounds all the fees. It gives managers agency on how they want to manage the position, and that's been natively integrated in major partners such as MakerDAO as collateral, and also been used in liquidity mining programs such as Fei, Float, Instep, and others. And we've had tremendous growth in G-Uni. In this past month alone, we just hockey sticked in TVL. We currently are sitting at $236 million in TVL for just our G-Uni product, and I think all these different applications show like how what you could do with Gelato. You have all these different use cases on top of Gelato in the same way that there are dApps on top of Ethereum. So like I said earlier, it's infinite design space. There's all different kinds of things that can be done with the Gelato network. And then most recently, we released the Gelato Ops, which I call the ultimate tool for automation. This allows any developer to automate simple if this, then that task. This can be used for auto compounding, auto rebalancing, topping off contracts, etc. We are multi-chain, so we've been integrated across change with different projects, tens of different projects integrating us natively over the past few months. These include B Protocol, Keeper DAO, KeyDAO, a ton of others, and we're talking to a lot on BSC. And you're gonna see we're definitely gonna just become a mainstay on BSC. It's not a matter if, it's just a matter of when. For example, here's an example of what could possibly happen on BSC. In the past few days alone on Polygon, we just breached over 4K daily transactions. On BSC, I would expect this to double, especially with the amount of action in TVL that's on BSC. And here are some of our future plans. Our main thing, like I said earlier, we're transaction hungry, so we're trying to incentivize builders. So 0% fees for Gelato Ops for the rest of 2021. Woo! And then, in the future, we plan to implement different types of automation, including off-chain conditions, which basically takes data from API calls and not just on-chain data for bots to trigger and execute transactions. We plan to do sending transactions and messages between chains. Some cross-layer messaging is something very important to us. We plan to open up the executor network so allow anyone to stake in the Gelato network, and we plan to launch a fully on-chain governance DAO. Where to find the Gelato network? You can find us on Twitter at Gelato Network, Telegram, Discord. You can read our Medium post, and my Twitter is Dave said that if you want to follow me. Thank you very much, and that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Dave. It's really interesting, and particularly, I like the quote, "Smart contracts are not smart." So ever since the DeFi ecosystem is growing, more and more limitations are actually showing. So I guess automation is indeed one of the more important factors that we should look into right now. So I've collated some questions. First one would be from what it seems like a developer. So using Gelato Ops has been quite interesting on Phantom. When could we expect such integration on BSC? And what would be the main challenges and timeline for such integration?
Yeah, so we're live on BSC right now. So you can go to app.gelato.network. Actually, can I share my screen?
Definitely.
Yeah. Let me actually pull this up. We are live on BSC right now. Give me 1 second. Actually, never mind. Shoot, I can't pull this up right now. Never mind. But like you should expect it very soon. If it's not live, you can go to app.gelato.network and you'll be able to do if this then that task. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation. Right now we're live on Polygon, Phantom. You can try us on different test nets. But our ultimate goal is to expand to all chains, all EVM compatible chains and beyond. So you can expect that very soon. Like I said earlier, we have limit orders live on that taps into PancakeSwap's liquidity, and Binance Smart Chain is something that is of most high priority to us.
That sounds amazing. So here comes the next question. What is the general direction of Gelato Network right now? Is it a move towards advanced features for power users, or creating tutorials and informative materials to onboard new DeFi users?
So I would consider Gelato's kind of target users as developers. So it could be anyone that's like a beginner developer that is learning about smart contracts for the first time and trying to see like what other things they can do with smart contracts. And so they go on, app Gelato Ops to do something like, automate the licking of ice cream or something like that. Or they can be, more advanced stage projects and developers that are looking to do some type of deep integration, and they see Gelato as a useful tool to do that. So basically, our team would work with their team to make that happen to the benefit of all users. So let's say, for example, earlier presentation, Waterfall DeFi, they have all these different tranches, and let's say there's like an expiration on a tranche, and there's a rollover, and you have to manually do the rollover. Something that could be automated is every time a tranche ends, then a Gelato bot can automatically roll over into a new tranche. So we look for devs and projects to integrate with like that.
Perfect sense. So thank you for sharing so much. It's really interesting, and I do foresee automation being a critical part of this ecosystem. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you so
I'll
much.
see
This
you
was a lot
around.
of fun. And if anybody, I encourage everyone, join our Telegram, join our Discord. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Twitter. I'm just vibing there. So just come say hi.
Sure. To our community members, please reach out to Dave. He's a friendly growth lead of Gelato. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day in GM.
You too. So yes, this has been an amazing session. Huge thanks to both Tom and Dave for taking time out of their busy schedule, and also to our community members watching this. Before we end this off, please note that the expo is ongoing, and we have another session tomorrow at the same time. The guests tomorrow are builders who have built amazing games and metaverses. If you have missed today's AMA, there's no need to fret out just yet. Head over to BSC's Twitter and submit your questions. You stand a chance to win great rewards as well. Thank you for your time today. Thank you.